begin. But I can't seem to get over thinking this will never end. Too many beautiful nights I spend my time alone. Can't seem to have an appetite for getting up out the door.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Walk. My name's Gareth, I'm joined by Andy, I'm joined by Phil, and we're in the village of Fauld, just on the Staffordshire-Derbyshire border. We're here to take a look at the remains of RAF Fauld. Now, during the Second World War, RAF Fauld was an ammunition and weapons storage facility. But at 11 minutes past 11 on Monday, the 27th of November 1944, that facility went bang. And it was the largest explosion in British history, and actually the largest non-nuclear explosion on the planet. And so 80 years ago, this sleepy little village on the border literally shook the world. So if you look at old maps of this area going back, say, 150 years, they're mainly gypsum mines, which I think is used in fertilisation. But what they did is they took over those mines. So if we have a look, what have we got here, lads? It just looks like a farmer's track.
It's an inconspicuous farm track.
Easy for you to say, Phil.
But had a tramway coming down off of the Derby to Stoke line. And it was narrow gauge, so there must have been some kind of exchange sidings up at the top there at the village of Scropton.
Scropton?
Yeah. And it crossed the river, ambled down here and went into the hillside and into the RAF base, which is not far from here, look, over the road there.
So if I just get Google Earth up, this is where we're starting the walk, just that little farmer's track there. That's all private land, but that was the tramway, and we're going to follow it up through the industrial estate where there are some remains of this line before getting to the site itself of that explosion. So we've just nipped round. Basically that's the line of this Fauld tramway. Now we've seen this building, which is quite a significant building. You've got a theory here, Andy.
Yeah, I just think if obviously this was an RF base, that with a brick style and how it looks, just looks exactly like an officer's mess.
Yeah, it does. Okay, so just up from that, what Andy thinks is an officer's mess, I concur. We've hit the jackpot. Mate, embedded rail. Look at that. And also, we've got some on the other side. That's quite a big gap between the two. So you've got a line there, you can just see it following up to the right, and there's one there on the left.
Yeah, well, apart from the river crossings, there was always a gap. When it had to go across a bridge, obviously they don't want to make it that wide, do they?
No.
It went into one. And went back to two again, nearly everywhere, and it carries on all the way down.
Wow.
Maybe something to do with what it's transporting, dangerous goods. Maybe they don't want to risk if something that happened, it doesn't affect the one coming the other way, I don't know.
So the fact that this tramway was carrying ammunitions, I think Phil's on it. I think that's the reason why it's such a huge gap. Because if one goes off, you don't want it taking the other one off. Which obviously eventually is exactly what happened here. I think it's interesting as well, guys, that it's got a guide rail the whole way, pretty much. Just as I say that, it loses the guide rail. But they were obviously trying to be as careful as they possibly could, given, you know, the danger of what they're carrying. What did you say then, Phil?
I said that the line in several
Forks
places...
off.
Oh, it forks off, right. Yeah, it does. Yeah, we've got a point here as well. Mate, so there would have been more going off there as well, to the right.
There were loads of offshoots. Every few yards are offshoots into different storage areas, and, you know, most of them are lost, but that'll be a long lost one going into something there, yeah.
So as I said earlier, this whole area that we're walking up to, all the big hills, they were all old gypsum mines, and all those tunnels were taken over by the Ministry of Defence for the war effort. Here we go, look at that, there's another one there. Yeah, so that's going back in the other direction,
yeah,
so that would have been a triangle, yeah, into there. Now in 1944, this whole facility exploded. Now we're talking 4,500 tons of explosives underground, all going bang. Now it led to the deaths of 90 people, but that number only came out years later because it was during the Second World War. The Ministry of Defence and the government, the War Department, didn't want basically the Germans or any of their enemies to know what had happened. Okay, so the Fauld tramway carries on there. You can see the embedded rail is still in the road. Unfortunately, that gate is private land. Now, you've just spoke to the lad, and it's not negotiable, is it?
Yeah, I tried to do the Langham charm, and I could see it wasn't going to work.
It wasn't going to work. He's seen it all before, the geezer. So we're going to jump off here and basically go round. But it's not all bad news, because by walking round, we should intersect certain bits of the line that came off that main line. So actually, by not being allowed in there, we might actually end up seeing more than we would. So there you go. You see the hills there? That's where we're walking up to. That's basically the gypsum mines all underneath there. So that's where these lines were going into. And the crater that was RAF Fauld is just over the top there. So we've got our eyes peeled now for these lines coming out. Now, if you look at these old maps, you can see just how many lines there were coming off of that Fauld tramway. Now, that's quite strange, because normally when we explore any sort of military facility, they're not on maps for obvious reasons. But on this particular site, there's pretty, extensive maps really, so you can see just how vast the site was. So we've walked up the side of this private land. Now, here we go. Hang on a sec. I might be able to get a decent view. So this is where we're going. These are the hills, obviously, that had all those weapons stored in them. But actually, hang on, we can get to that. So let's jump over here. Oh, you can see just how cold it is, look. Everything's frozen. But we can actually get a view. Here's a tunnel here, guys. Oh, there you go, look at that. Now, the Fauld tramway is the other side, so the line, I imagine, is coming in from the other direction. But there you go, there's one of the tunnels then. That's quite deep down there. I don't know if this is an electric fence, but let's see if I can just step over it. This is a bit where I find a landmine. Now, obviously they've just dumped earth here, haven't they? Yeah. Oh no, I can see track, yeah.
Yeah, so this has all been dumped.
Yeah. So there you go, you can see the track coming out. That's just a single line coming out there. Mate, incredible. So Phil has just spotted another one. Now it is private land, so I'm not gonna, do you know what I mean, delve too deep, but you can just see it there. See where I'm pointing, there's another one, which would be exactly the same. And if you look at the old rail map, you can see that this line came out into a head shunt here, basically, and then back into that one there. What an absolute bonus that was to see that. Now, Phil, we're basically going up there. That's where we're going. But Phil's got a bit of a theory, so we're coming around to see if there's some more remains just over this little hill. So you can see the shape of it now from above. Not very big, that particular storage facility. It's certainly a more modern one. But there's the other side of it, so I imagine they probably still use that. Now, what's your theory here, Phil? Because you've brought us uphill.
Well, I just wanted to have a look at the lay of the land, because that tram line and the road was all coming down carries on going. But to all intents and purposes, looking there, it looks like it's... But I think below us, the road keeps going. There's loads of storage huts like that, and we just, unfortunately, I don't think we can get to them.
Well, should we go over that?
Have a look, yeah.
Yeah, past the tree. See, there's another one there.
Well, what's just below us?
And there's another one here as well. Oh, yeah, there's one here as well, look. So after the explosion, which we'll talk about in more detail once we get to the site of it, it carried on being used until about 1966, and then it was all shut down. But then, in the late 60s, the Americans took over the site. I think they had a lot of their munitions at that point were stored in France, but France pulled out of NATO, and so the US were ordered to move all their weaponry out of the country, and they moved it here to RAF Fauld, or at least what was left of RAF Fauld, and they kept it here till around about 1973. Now at that point it's all shut down and now it's used for different industry. Oh Phil, what a spot. So there's the tram line on that road. That's the continuation of the road that we weren't allowed to carry on, and look at that line there, just in that little bit, just going into another facility here. So that's in line with the one behind it, so I'm guessing that's probably gone through out and they were all connected. Oh, goodness me. What a spot that was, Phil. Look at that, mate, Hawkeye. So we've come to the end of the line, because this is private, so we're not going to go on that. Because obviously we've asked and been told no. But there you go, look. Still carrying on the right and on the left. All the way up, and then it went into the hill. But what we're going to do is we're going to, stick to the permissible route and go up over the top. Right, so we're climbing up the hill. And it is quite a climb. Actually,
Should have steps.
should have steps, but beneath us are all those old gypsum mines, and so various tunnels almost certainly underneath us right now. Oh, mate, I'm out of breath, I'm panting, but you know what, it's worth it. Look at that view. Wow. So we're pretty much at the top of the hill now. So at this point, we're looking out for a massive hole. Now that is what was RAF Fauld. It's known as the Fauld crater, or the Harbury crater is how it shows up on maps around here. Harbury being a village that's just on the other side of the hill. Now it shouldn't be that hard to spot because this crater is 30 meters deep and over 300 meters across. That is one large bang. So looking at the lay of the land, I'm wondering, because obviously there's tunnels all underneath us. Now when that explosion happened, obviously it's blown an enormous crater that we're going to come to. But I'm guessing it probably would have led to the collapse of other tunnels, wouldn't it, Phil?
Could do. This looks like it's been worked to it, yeah?
It does, yeah. So Phil's just made the point that actually it looks like we're on top of some lead workings. I guess when we climbed up to Bonsall, just outside Cromford, and we looked at all those lead workings. Hang on, here's a clue. Do not dig. Danger. Danger of collapse. Okay, right, let's stick to the path then. So these could well have been workings, and actually, if you look underneath that tree, is that a grate? Can you see a grate? See that? Jeez Louise.
No, it's a feeder.
Okay, it's a feeder. So there's animals on here?
Yeah, that's why there's like some fences, isn't it?
Oh, I guess, yeah. Oh, I can't, you know.
'Cause it's not to keep humans.
You're not as heavy as a cow, are you? So,
No.
you'll be fine. Now, if you look at the drone footage of this area we're in now, there's a lot of workings here. There's a lot of collapses, what looks like collapses, which would make total sense. Because if an explosion as large as 4,500 tons of explosives creates such an enormous crater, it's also, you know, gonna reverberate through the tunnels and no doubt bring other tunnels down, and that's what it looks like's happened here. So we're in a wooded area now, and we're kind of walking down. So if you look on Google Maps, you can see where the crater is all wooded, so we're in the vicinity. Now, as I said earlier, 30 meters down, 300 meters across. Even I shouldn't miss that. Here we go. There's your clue. Well, it's not a clue, it's a sign. Fauld crater. So we hang a right. Now I'm pretty sure the crater is actually in there. We're going to walk around the right side of it. So 90 people officially lost their lives as a result of this explosion. Now a lot of them were underground. So you can imagine what that was like. Now, I think there's around about 14 bodies were never recovered. Now, obviously they could have been buried in other tunnels, of which there were many, or almost certainly, with that level of explosion, there'd just be nothing left of the poor souls. But another part of the reason why there were so many deaths is there was a reservoir at the top of the hill. Now, if you look on these old maps going into the late 1800s, you can see the reservoir there. Now, that was around about 500,000 gallons, I think, of water. So when this exploded, it decimated that as well. So people weren't just killed by the explosion, they were actually killed by the flooding, which ripped through some local workings, also ripped through a farm, and it ripped through some houses.
So yeah, there was a farm up there, and if you look where it was positioned, it weren't in a very good spot to have any chance of even knowing the explosion happened. Probably just
was it basically on top
it was
of
on
where?
top of the on top of it, in almost epicentre of it. Yeah, really bad.
We've got workings now. Look, now these are well, they look active because there's still all gypsum mines still here, and I'm guessing they still use gypsum because it's used as a fertiliser. Andy, I thought I knew why this explosion happened, but there's another theory.
Yeah, well, I mean, nobody's going to know for certain because it was all blown to smithereens. But originally, the government said that there were Italian prisoners of war that were working here, and they thought it was a sabotage, almost a self-sacrificing,
A suicide bomber, essentially.
Yeah. But then they changed that in the 70s or 80s to basically say that they think it was somebody who was taking the blasting caps off with a brass chisel rather than a wooden one.
It's caused a spark, bang.
Guess we'll never really know.
Okay, so we've basically been walking, and we found ourselves in the middle of the crater. I didn't even notice that happening. Now there's signs saying Ministry of Defence. Oh wow. So we're at the bottom. You can just see as it goes up. We've just spotted this, look, unexploded bombs. Danger. Ministry of Defence, keep out. Okay, I don't really need telling twice in this particular instance. So there's loads of water in the middle of the crater, but I guess there would be, it's a crater. It doesn't have anywhere to run. And also, you know, 80 years ago, a reservoir obviously flooded the whole area. You've just made a really good point there, Andy, that actually where we are now is completely unnatural. We should be all the way up there on top of a hill.
Yes, it's what's really strange, you know, it just seems natural, doesn't it? It's just natural land that you're walking on, but the reality is we should be about 30 feet up.
So we've reached the top of the crater. It is enormous. You can see it from the sky, it's absolutely enormous. Phil's found an even better view. Wow. It does look natural though, doesn't it, Andy? Like it's just, you know, it's a valley, but yeah. I'm trying to quantify in my head how loud that explosion must have been.
It actually resembles a quarry, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, to be fair, yeah, it does. But I can't get my head around how loud.
I would have thought if you're in a, you know, a mile or so of it, you're probably going to be deaf forever. I think it's fair enough to, you know, I think that's the thing as well, isn't it? When anything like this happens, you always go, so many people dead. But nobody talks about, and so many people deafened for life, and so many people, you know, might have been blinded with shrapnel from things and stuff like that. We never seem to mention the dead.
So to put into context, you know, I said at the top, it basically shook the world. Obviously, the reverberations of this blast were felt all over the shop, but it was actually heard, audibly heard, and reported in Coventry, which you're saying is about 50 miles away.
Yeah, about 50.
That's loud. So there we go. This must be a memorial to it. Yes. I wonder what that is then. Whether that's a piece of RAF Fauld that they've used, I wonder. Trying to think the relevance of that.
Well, that looks like they're blast marks from where they've been blasting in a mine log, where they put where they slide in the...
Yeah.
So I don't know
the charges, yeah.
I don't really get why there've been so many in close proximity, because there shouldn't be.
No, but I wonder if it's come out of the... So here's the names. Oh, those who lost their lives. Oh my goodness, yeah, so the first 18, so I said 14 unaccounted for, it was 18. So they were all in there then, basically. And these are the other people. Goodness me, look, the amount of times the surname's the same as well. Members of the same family.
Oh yeah, it'll be man and boy, won't it? Dad and son.
Oh man. What have we got here as well? Largest explosion caused by conventional weapons, yeah. Jeez, that's insane. Okay, so that's us, almost. So I sent the drone up so you can just see just how enormous that crater is. And I've discovered just a couple of fields over, that tram line, that tramway that we were sort of following at the start, and then obviously we couldn't get any further. As you can see from this bit of drone footage, that still goes in into the hillside, and there's some real good footage there of a couple of ways in. So I'm not sure, I guess that's still Ministry of Defence, and maybe they still store stuff down there, I'm not entirely sure. But unfortunately it's private, so we can't get into it. So that's us. Thank you so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. Cheers lads.
Yeah, no worries.
Nice one, and as always, we'll see you next time.